Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. My name is Masako Watanabe. I am a senior research associate in the Department of Asian Art. Welcome to Sunday at the Met, held in conjunction with the special exhibition Japanese Storytelling in Japanese Art, which I curated. This exhibition is made possible by the Miriam and Ira D. Wallach Foundation with additional support provided by the Japan Foundation. Today, we have 3 distinguished lecturers. Each of them will introduce a story from the exhibition. The first lecture is by Dr. John Carpenter, the new curator of Japanese art at the Metropolitan Museum. He will discuss a set of 300 scrolls entitled A Long Tale for an Autumn Night. The second lecture will be given by Dr. Sarah Thompson, assistant curator for Japanese prints at the Museum of Fine Arts, Boston. Sarah's talk is about the Battle of the 12 Animals, on which she wrote her dissertation. The last lecture will be given by Professor Melanie Trede of Heidelberg University. Melanie is now teaching at the University of Michigan, Ann Arbor as the Toyota visiting professor. Her subject is the heroic story of Taisho Kan. The 3 illustrated stories are all on view in the Japanese galleries. Now please join me in welcoming Dr. John Carpenter.
Thank you very much, Masako. First of all, I would like to congratulate Masako Watanabe on the marvelous and most memorable exhibition. The exhibition drew on many years of experience Masako had working on the subject. Attendance has been excellent, and as people who live in New York are aware, it's received wonderful reviews. I can't resist just showing you one of them. This is from the New York Times, which, for the very first time ever, turned its page format horizontally to reflect the way that an emakimono, or Japanese hand scroll, should be read. It's a wonderful review by Roberta Smith. I'd also like to thank Melanie Trede, Sarah Thompson, Akiko Sakurai for joining in this program today. I'd like to also thank Jennifer Mock, Joseph Lowe, Naomi Takafuchi, and everyone else at the Met who made this event possible. My short talk today on the illustrated scroll of a long tale for an autumn night. We have an image here. This is just a detail. You can see the scroll in this section on view in the Arts of Japan galleries. The scroll dates to around 1400 or the early 15th century, and the tale itself was put into writing sometime around the last quarter of the 14th century. If you haven't had the opportunity to view these and other hand scrolls on view, I hope you'll have a chance before the exhibition closes on May 6th. In 2002, the Metropolitan acquired this rare set of 3 illustrated hand scrolls. It's a tragic but sensitively narrated love story of a Buddhist monk who falls in love with a chigo, or a teenaged male acolyte attendant. The subject may strike us as scandalous in the context of modern mores. But in the monastic culture of medieval Japan, homosexual relations between monks, even if not condoned by the Buddhist establishment, were common and generally accepted. Buddhist monks, of course, were supposed to be celibate and refrain from indulging in carnal desires of any variety with women or men. So it becomes a common theme in such tales for a senior Buddhist monk to confess his affairs of heart and then repent and promise to renounce his lustful ways, which is not such an unusual behavior pattern to anyone who follows the news of contemporary American politics these days. This tale belongs to a genre of medieval didactic tales on homoerotic themes called Chigo Monogatari, or stories of acolytes, Buddhist novices. The set of scrolls acquired by the Metropolitan is generally recognized as the earliest and the finest surviving illustrated version of this tale. There's another copy in the Eisei Bunko in Tokyo, the repository of the Hosokawa samurai family in Tokyo, but that one is a later version. As often happens in the case of such illustrated scrolls, sometimes sections or even entire scrolls from a set are separated. And in the case of the 3 scrolls on view upstairs, there were 2 small sections that were not included when the Met acquired it 10 years ago. And it is most fortuitous that we now have managed to reunite these orphaned sections with their parents. Upstairs, you might notice that this section actually doesn't even have proper credit line included yet, and that's because it just arrived just a couple weeks before the exhibition was to open, and I don't think we actually even paid for it until after the exhibition opened. But I'm happy to announce it is officially ours, so don't worry. I apologize that my photographs aren't as good as the professional photography for other sections because it was put into the display case before we could have new photography made, but everyone can view it upstairs. My talk today will focus on how these rediscovered sections fit into the set of scrolls and how they function within the narrative structure. In the process, I'd like to explain in more detail what is taking place in this final section of the scroll, which depicts a Raigo-e, or a ritual procession imitating the descent of Amida Buddha, the Buddha of the Western Paradise, to bring the soul of the deceased to the Western Paradise. A previous owner of the scrolls, sometime prior to 1982, I suppose, had taken out 2 sections from the set of scrolls. The first scene from the first scroll and the last scene of the 3rd and final scroll. In 2005, the missing fragment, shown here, came to the attention of the Met through a local Japanese art dealer and was acquired, and it was restored by conservators to its proper position within the scroll. So when you go up to the galleries now, you can check the first scroll in the set, and you'll see this section included, but it's been reinserted into the scroll in the proper place, and you can barely tell that it's been reinserted. The final missing section of the scroll was brought to my attention this summer by a gallery owner in Tokyo. This section, I immediately realized, corresponds exactly in size, the continuity of the landscape. As I'll show you later, the cloud motifs fit perfectly with photographs that I could check with the website, the Met's website. And so there was no doubt in my mind they were part of the same set. But notice that this section, the final section, actually works well on its own as a self-sufficient composition. So in this case, we might decide to leave it mounted as a hanging scroll, both for conservation and display reasons, but we'll decide that in the future with conservation staff. Let me begin the way the story begins, with the narrator warning the reader. Recently, I have heard something very strange, enough indeed to make you raise your heads from your pillows. I shall tell you a long tale for an autumn night to keep you company in the sleeplessness of old age. So what is that strange tale? Pictures, hand scrolls of this variety, as we see up in the galleries now, with text and images interspersed, were designed to be read by individuals or a small group of viewers. The scroll would be unrolled slowly with the text for each episode preceding the related illustration. In this case, when the segment was still mounted as part of a hand scroll, viewers would first encounter text similar to what we see here, but the image would not be immediately visible. You would only unfurl about this much. So there would be a suspense involved, and the reader would have to anticipate what comes next. And this is how the scroll appeared when the Metropolitan first acquired it, in this kind of style of the early 15th century. You have facial features, the details of figures done in a very abbreviated manner, using thin brushstrokes to denote eyes, nose, and mouth. The stylized bands of cloud and mist are characteristic of this genre of hand scroll painting and serve various purposes, including creating an atmosphere of the remote past. They also help cover sudden narrative disjunctures in time or geographic space. So some of you in the audience might be wondering, how is it possible that the Metropolitan could acquire a couple of scrolls and not realize some of the sections were missing? Why didn't they ask to get their money back? Why didn't they ask for a discount? Well, first of all, as I mentioned, it's very common when you have a scroll that's over 500 years old for some sections to be missing or lost to the ravages of time and nature. Well, there's another reason why sometimes you don't realize a section is missing, and that's because when you observe the scrolls upstairs, you often find the same character appearing. For instance, the monk in this case, the monk Keikai, appears twice in the same scene. So you don't realize that maybe he appeared 3 times in the same scene. This special technique, I'll just give you one specialist term to remember, that ijidozu. Literally, it means a different time, same illustration. And it's the technique by which artists could create one landscape setting but depict events that take place in different chronological sequences.